the bottom line, the overall overarching concept is that everything needs maintenance, right? The day you set it up is the only day it's going to be perfect.
Through the Noise Insights with Ernesto Gluecksmann and Mickey Panayiotakis.
Mickey,
what's happening?
What's up? Remember that?
No, I'm not. Yeah.
Just wanted to jump into this quickly today. How many conversations have you had with clients lately about data integrity concerns or issues? It doesn't come up.
3, 4. It does. It doesn't come up on like a weekly, yearly, daily. But when there is like a database change, right? When someone says, "Okay, a database," we've talked about this before, is integral to an organization. But nobody will say that data is integral to the organization, right? Just a database. Everything's been a database, and because the database is like their day-to-day operations and it syncs with everything. I mean, you have things like your Eventbrite account like has to get the data back into, or Cvent that has to get the data back into the database, or you're selling freaking widgets at a trade show and you're gathering people's information and you want to know who bought what, so that goes back in the database. Or you're selling T-shirts, you're giving away T-shirts or whatever it is, meeting attendance. You have multiple sources that come in, or you have some subscriptions, whatever it is, all these, and some of them are part of the database and some of them are third parties that they'll have to integrate, and then somehow they have to then again integrate. The data has to go back out to your invoicing system, your bookkeeping system, your reporting system. So it's an ecosystem. Let's just call it an ecosystem, for lack of a more colorful term. But nobody thinks of the data. They don't think about the database. And because the database is so integral, when it's time to change databases, when it becomes such a big pain in the rear that people are like, okay, we've had enough. This just is not working for us anymore. The database doesn't work
as advertised.
Yeah, or it doesn't. It's just clubbered together. It's too old, or we have a new. It's not sexy enough. The new rep doesn't buy us enough steak lunches or whatever it is, martini lunches. For whatever reason, people are fed up with the database and like, okay, we're gonna undertake this huge effort to change databases, and that means you have to take all the data out of the old database and put it into the new database. And there's like first in, first out FIFO data structures and last in, last out data structures, and There's a similar concept here called shit in, shit out. So if you take the old data from the old database that has duplicates and incorrect data and all the other stuff, and you put in the new database will suffer the same problem. So this is a long-winded way of saying that is the time. And because we've worked with a couple of organizations that either have undergone or will undergo shortly or thinking about undergoing a database change, then they're thinking about data integrity. And they don't use that word, of course, right? It's they just say we need to clean up the data, but that's what it means. It means going through and making sure that the data that you have is valid.
Right. I think there's a natural tendency to just we want to get it all. I don't really have a specific use, but I don't want to. If in the future I think I might need this aspect, this case history of a
data hoarding
or whatever, data hoarding.
Data hoarding. Well, that's a separate concept altogether, because then you're starting to talk about privacy concerns and having, we as part of data integrity, as of the past 3 or 4 years, we need to consider data privacy and what data we collect on other people and who owns the data. What are our responsibilities regarding that data? And historically, and more importantly now, it's also been what does it cost to keep, maintain, and all that data. We talk about everything we do. We talk about full life cycle, right? So at some point, it's going to have to die. So when is that going to be? How long do we keep that data? It's easy to come up. It's difficult on the back end to say, well, we'll never need this ever again. But it becomes easier if you have a process that says after 5 years, that goes away.
A member profile that's not been active for 5 years should then be removed.
Or data we collect on an event. If we have event data, we'll keep that for 5 years because that's when our reporting
Generate the
requirements are.
reports, and then do you really need the individual records, transactions? Maybe that can be removed. Right. I also kind of see, like, as some of these systems are becoming very sophisticated and very flexible, very user friendly, you can do all kinds of things. I'm thinking of one of our favorite task managers, Asana. I really like that tool, and it's a database. It's a database of tasks and things, but data integrity comes into play there when we have a new process and we set it up a certain way. We have a template for that process, but then not everyone fully got what that process was, and they create a slightly different version, and there's information that's more current in a different location than the location everybody thought it was going to be in, and then that bifurcates because that process is a little bit different, and then you start to see this, like, well, I am looking at a report, but how much of that information do I trust is most current, most authoritative source? You always bring up that concept of, what's our authoritative source for the specific data? And that's part of data integrity concern.
You just touched on like 7 different topics here, which is so there is certainly there is scope creep, there is data creep, there is tools that make it so easy for you that you just kind of throw stuff in there, whether you want to, where you need to, or that should be the right place or not. And there's different data sources and different data stores, different authoritative locations for different types of data. But the bottom line, the overall overarching concept is that everything needs maintenance, right? The day you set it up is the only day it's going to be perfect. As you start putting stuff in there, you're going to forget something. Someone else is going to forget something. Some new client is going to have a process that's slightly different. So now you have to shoehorn that process in there, and some doesn't quite, or maybe shoehorn the template a little bit.
The annual event has changed. We're now going to let spouses in, or they're going to have this date or that, and then suddenly
there's always always something. But the day you set it up is the only time it's going to be perfect.
Don't touch it after that.
Which is, of course, impossible, right? So what you need to do is make it simple enough, flexible enough, but the bottom line is maintenance. We need to make sure that we maintain it on a regular basis.
Maybe the word maintenance isn't the right term.
Okay.
Because I never think of anybody getting excited about maintenance.
Well, no, nobody's getting excited.
Wants to go to the gym every 3 times a week to maintain.
Well,
you go to the gym to improve, to be better than yourself.
I bring this up all the time with friends of mine. You and I snowboard. A lot of people, other people run marathons or whatever it is. If you have a marathon to run in March, you don't go out, March 15th, let's say, the Ides of March. You don't just get up on the Ides of March and say, I'm going to go run my marathon now.
Yeah.
All right. If you snowboard, if you ski, you're going to go out, you're going to spend probably like $2,000 to fly out to Revelstoke or Whistler, all these big fancy, Chamonix in France, some fancy sounding names. You're going to take a week of work. You're going to fly out there. It's going to cost you like $500 to fly, another $1,000 to stay in a place. It's going to cost you, $100 a day on a lift ticket. And you're going to be there to have fun and enjoy yourself. And if you don't go to your local shitty mountain, right, and do your turns to get yourself in shape. If you don't go to the gym twice a week to be in shape to do that, if you don't do your 5K run every morning to practice and prepare for your marathon,
Breckenridge is going to eat you alive.
Yeah, you're going to get there and you're going to get hurt. You're going to hurt yourself the first day, and you're going to be sitting at the hotel looking at the people having fun out the window, and you're going to be out $2,000.
Yeah, for some people that is the vacation.
That's fine. Yeah, but fine. Those people don't go to Breckenridge, right? Those people go to some sort of resort.
Your analogy here is if you want to be a performing organization and you need to track data, and you need to work on it, you need to work at it, you need to maintain.
So perhaps maintenance isn't the term; it should be operational.
Operational,
right? It should be part of your operational budget and process, and part of your operation to audit And everybody does audits, right? There's audits in every aspect of the organization, whether it's the membership side or whether it is the financial side. There is at some point there's an audit, and data should also have a regular operational component to maintain and making sure that the data, not maintain, but making sure that data is valid, making sure that there is a process in place to enter, validate, and at some point remove data. There should also be components that says who has access to what data on the privacy side. There should be a way to analyze, think about what we collect data. What are the reasons for collecting that data? What does it help us do? How does it help make our organization better? And what data do we need to make that? And I think another thing that you touched on with making it easy to collect all that data, I thought you were going to go with that is all the analytics that the different tools give you, from Google Analytics to your events analytics. They just bombard you with all these data, statistics, analytics, whatever you want to call it, insights. But nobody kind of steps back and says, what do we need? What information do we need from this analytics? What can we measure? And how does that make us better? So for an organization to use data to become better, they need to start with, what does better look like? And what is the type of data we need to have to help us analyze and become better?
And in the end, through that process you're describing with the data, working on your data integrity processes, you're not going to call it that, but just working on reviewing and assessing your data, you'll go through the process of assessing whether the software systems you're using make sense and are fit for what you're trying to achieve for the organization.
Yeah. What data do we collect? Is it accurate? How do we collect it in a way that makes it, makes us a better organization and makes us aware and conscious of other people's privacy and their needs and respectful of their data? How do we make it? How do we keep the data correct, valid? What processes do we have to change it? And how often do we have to change it? How long do we keep it for? And what software helps us do all that?
And I think you also you just touched on that point. You have to be conscientious of, just because the software can measure it doesn't mean that those are the metrics or KPIs you should be collecting. It might be more difficult to report on and collect other types of metrics that the software can't do necessarily, but it's an organizational thing. It's a way you organize yourselves. And so that is where probably true growth exists. Just because Google Analytics shows you all these fancy things that people have clicked on your website doesn't mean that is the stuff that everyone needs to know, whether you're on the right track as an organization or not, right?
Certainly. I mean, that's Google Analytics, Facebook Insights,
wonderful
Twitter data, whatever they call it.
A little overwhelming.
It's a little overwhelming, but their goal is to show you growth.
Right.
Google doesn't want you to see that your website is not really doing much. Google's a little bit of an outlier because Google doesn't actually provide your website for you, but Facebook doesn't want your Facebook page doing not as well, right? Because then you'll move away from Facebook and you'll go to LinkedIn or you'll go to Twitter or you go to Instagram. So it's their business to provide you data that's vague enough so that it's always positive.
Those impressions numbers are always impressive.
Yeah, they're impressive, aren't they?
Impressions are impressive.
Yeah, I mean, look at Facebook. Facebook gives you the number of views or interactions for a post over time. Well, that's of course going to go up, but their monthly isn't, but your over time will. So you have to find out what key performance indicators are right for you. But the other thing about those is that they change at every level. So think of, for example, for your salesperson, your sales pipeline, all the way up to your executives and your organization. The salesperson's metrics and performance indicators are, they could be a little abstract. They could be how many phone calls they make, or how many contracts they put out, or whatever it is. Of course, at the end of the day, a salesperson has some sort of quota they have to meet at the end of the month or the quarter, whatever. The executive doesn't really care how many calls someone made or how many contracts are out the door. They care about, how we're going to meet our quota for the quarter and for the year. Are we going to make our $250,000 sales target? or not? What is that number, that dollar figure, right? You can't start a dollar figure and say yes or no. You have to, there's processes that go in place. So as you go down the pipeline, down the chain, that key indicator will change. For your sales manager's indicator is going to have more than just sales numbers on there, because to meet those sales numbers, he needs to have the contacts, he needs to have the marketing, he needs to have all the other things. It's the same thing with all data. You do have a membership target. Your director on your organization needs to know are going to meet the membership target, but your membership coordinator needs to do all the outreach things and has key indicators related to the outreach.
Right, that worked maybe in the past, and then they're trying to improve in certain areas to see if that makes a bit of an improvement in how they communicate.
Yeah, our target is to have like 7 meetings, and the meeting attendance should be 100 people per meeting. And if we do that, then like 20% will convert to membership. And the executive doesn't really care that you did the 7 meetings and you did the 50% of the attendance or the 75% of the attendance, and those are just like blah 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 numbers. They care that yes, we'll meet our membership targets, or we'll be 5% short, or it'll be 5% high.
Right. Of course, then if they don't meet those targets, then they're going to care. What are those?
Well,
what? How did you do this? Right.
If you don't meet them consistently, if your membership director is consistently like 10% under target, you might want to, as an executive, get involved and see why, and like kind of try to micromanage the process. Or you may want to change your expectation, or you may want to like fire that guy because he's always underperforming and hire someone else. Maybe a girl that's going to do better, because they always do. Or you may look at the data and say, well, why is it that we're not doing that? Like, look at all the data that we have and say, how does that compare? What is it that we're missing? Does the data show us something, or does it not?
Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I'm done talking.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for listening, man. I know I spoke a lot there. I apologize.
No, I'm trying to do better at listening. So that's one of my key performance indicators.
Well, listening? How much time you spend listening?
Listening.
We'll have Ben there break down the talking versus listening ratio there.
We'll put it on the website.
All right.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye-bye.
For more episodes of Through the Noise, go to throughthenoise.us.